Well, as I begin today, I'd like to say a few words about the anger, the division, the fear that's out there in the wake of an assassination, school violence, subsequent reactions that everybody is having in our country, even around the world, whether it's on TV, social media, conversations, you name it. With so many recent acts of violence, we can wonder, what is going on? Where is God? Where is God? Whether you're a regular churchgoer, maybe you're back in church for the first time in a while, or maybe the first time ever, you're welcome here. You're welcome here. We can all agree that life is precious. Life is all too short. We can all agree that murder and violence is wrong and evil, and we can agree that every person is made in God's image and likeness, and therefore every person has a dignity. And if you're here, I think you're open to the idea that faith can help us. Faith can only help and strengthen us, especially in times like this, that tempt us maybe tempt you and me toward panic, even despair. Faith can help us, both personally and as a community of faith, to go forward, to overcome fear, to keep our head up high in faith and hope. So I just wanted to say those few words. We're now in week 3 of our series for the fall, Everything Must Go. We've been talking about money and stuff because all we have in this life is part of life. We need material things. We can't escape that fact. And maybe that's why this whole topic can stir up for many of you so many strong emotions. Emotions like worry or stress or guilt or jealousy. Jesus understands that. He understands this strong emotion about this topic. That's why he talks about money and possessions more than any other topic. Not because he's obsessed with it, but because he knows that money can dominate our thoughts. Stuff can strain our relationships. Mammon can even capture our hearts. 2 weeks ago, we learned the guiding principle that takes us through this series. Renounce our possessions. What doesn't mean when we say renounce our possessions to get rid of all our stuff, but it means to put it in second place behind Jesus. And last week we faced the truth, most likely we've all messed up with this. And if you're a young person, you're probably going to mess up. Oh, we messed up maybe with overspending or getting into debt or oversaving or getting scammed, like I told this story last week, or in general, relying on money instead of God. Well, thanks be to God, he so loved the world that he gave his son. And he who is lifted up on the cross shows us the way. Well, this week we're going to look at the following question. In the face of a broken world, where you know that life is so precious, how can I grow in generosity in faith? How can I live this precious life I have now and actually begin to become more generous, more faith-filled even today? Well, that's what we'll look at, and to do so, we'll look once again at today's gospel reading. So with his words today, Jesus takes us much deeper. Remember that in his ministry on earth, Jesus often taught the crowds, he taught his disciples by telling stories. The stories we call parables. His parables often challenge his audience and challenge you and me to apply his lesson directly to our life, to our everyday life. And the parable we just heard that Deacon Max read is one of the most difficult and challenging in the entire Bible. So let's have a little fun with this. Let's break it down. It begins like this. A rich man had a steward who was reported to him for squandering his property. He summoned him and said, "What is this I hear about you? Prepare a full account of your stewardship, because you can no longer be my steward." So in this story, this parable Jesus is telling, there's a rich man with a lot of property, and the rich man has a steward, a person who manages his stuff. We're told the steward wasted his master's money. We're not told why, though. We don't know exactly. Maybe he overspent. Maybe he was scammed by somebody. We don't know. Regardless, the steward is in big trouble. He's been fired. He's given by his boss his 2 weeks' notice. So he began to think about what to do to make the best of a bad situation. So he says to himself, what shall I do now that my master is taking the position of steward away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do so that when I am removed from the stewardship, they may welcome me into their homes. So let's frame what he's saying here. He's worried, but he's thinking. He's not strong or capable of doing manual labor like digging ditches, and he doesn't want to become a beggar on the street. So he began to think, how can I go forward? Maybe I can get into the good graces of some of the clients of my boss. So he comes up with an idea. And I won't go through these verses here, but this is what he does. He goes to his boss's clients one by one, and he reduces their bills. At the time, the common practice was this: for the middleman, the steward, to take a cut as his own commission in all these business dealings. And so the steward here essentially reduces the debts the clients, the debtors, owe to his boss, the master, by eliminating his own cut. And as a result, the steward is setting himself up for success, winning the gratitude of the debtors, but even more, he's impressing his boss, the same guy who's going to fire him. And so, skipping ahead a few verses, we hear, and the master commended the dishonest steward for acting prudently. Wait, he commended him? Really? But the guy was dishonest. But notice, he wasn't praised for his dishonesty. He was praised for his prudence. For planning with the future in mind. He's still going to lose his job. That's already decided, for squandering the master's money, but he's commended for his prudence and planning ahead, and prudence is the opposite of squandering. So in Jesus' parables, you probably know this, somebody usually represents God and somebody represents us. Here the master, the steward's boss, is God. We are the stewards. And like any steward, we're caretakers of what we have in life. Is what we have really, truly ours? From God's perspective, no. Our possessions, our money isn't truly ours. It's God. It's just entrusted to us for a little while. One day we won't have it anymore. I heard this quote, supposedly said by the accountant of the famous businessman John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest people who ever lived. After Rockefeller died, his accountant was asked how much money he left behind. And the accountant responded, all of it. Remember, we can't take it with us. So in our gospel passage, Jesus then drives this point home, and he says this, I tell you, make friends for yourselves with dishonest wealth, so that when it fails, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. That seems like a very strange saying, doesn't it? Dishonest wealth. Jesus is implying that all of our interactions with money are somehow, quote unquote, dishonest. They can lead to corruption. But the basic meaning that Jesus is saying is we should use the material things of this world for eternal purposes. For eternal purposes. Like feed the hungry, educate the poor, share the gospel, support the mission of the body of Christ, the church. Money is temporary, but generosity in this world has an eternal impact. It's like playing Monopoly. Do you ever play game Monopoly? The money matters while you play, but afterwards, it all goes back into the box, right? The world's money, in a way, is like Monopoly money. The wise thing to do is to invest it where it lasts forever. So Jesus then says, the person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. If therefore you are not trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? Our money and our stuff of this earth can seem like everything in life. And that happens so often. But compared to things like love, peace, hope, friendship, life with Christ, the money and stuff of this world is tiny. It's small. And still, how we use it in the short term has eternal consequences. And so Jesus closes here with a clear warning. He says this: no servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon. The word mammon, you know what it means? It means literally in Hebrew, that which we trust in. Jesus knows and lets us know beforehand, money and stuff will compete with God in our hearts. We can't serve both. And so the question is again, how can we live prudently, not wastefully, but prudently with generosity and actually grow in our faith? How do we live this way? Well, as I said this 2 weeks ago, let me be very clear. Although we heard the bishop's video, this weekend we have this Catholic Ministries appeal we have every year for our diocese. I'm not asking parishioners for money in this series for St. John's. In recent years, in my preaching and my teaching on this subject of giving, whether it's giving to the church or giving to the poor or giving to our neighbor, I've adopted what we call the 4 P's. And this is maybe a challenge, but it's so important for young people to learn this. First, plan. So include giving in your budget. Make a plan for your personal budget. Second, prioritize. Make God's mission the top priority in your planning and spending habits. That's maybe a complete paradigm adjustment for us. And then third, give as a percentage. And just choose a percentage. It can be any percentage, no matter how small, to begin. And then fourth, progress. Progress. That means to aim to grow in generosity over time, over the course of your life. Because, bottom line, when we're focused on Jesus instead of money, you're free from jealousy. When you're focused on Jesus instead of money, you're free from guilt. When you're focused on Jesus instead of money, you're free from worry. And when you're focused on Jesus instead of money, you're defined by your relationship with Him and not what's in your bank account. So Jesus is clear. He's clear. Our money and our stuff won't last, but what we do with it can last forever. Here's something that can help. And just really consider this. In a few months, we're going to be offering a workshop called Financial Peace University here at the parish. We did this several years ago, and it was a big success. So we're going to try it again. It's a chance to learn practical tools for budgeting, planning, and living in freedom. So you can stop letting money control you and start letting God lead you. I'm going to try this myself in this workshop. I want to encourage you. We're going to continue to advertise this to give people a chance to sign up, to take this step, to ponder this. And don't just hear this message. Put it into practice. Because in the end, we know everything must go. Let's use what we have now to invest in what lasts forever. Amen.